Alex and I have been best friends since childhood, but when it came time for his wedding, I never received an invitation. After trying to reach out and getting no response, I found out that my role in his life wasn't what I thought. Here's the truth behind the wedding drama. Alex, 32M, and I, 32M, have been best friends since childhood. We're practically family. After college, we both moved back home to get settled. Around 4.5 years ago, Alex started dating Stella, 35F, a wonderful woman, though she seemed to have a subtle dislike for me from the start. I never understood why, but I brushed it off. In 2021, Alex and Stella moved across the country after she received a promotion. The following year, Alex proposed, she accepted, and they set their wedding date for late September 2023. At the start of the year, I received a save-the-date card. Based on my conversations with Alex, I assumed I'd be part of the wedding party, either as a groomsman or even the best man. However, I never received any official confirmation. A couple of months before the wedding, I noticed on social media that invitations had gone out. I assumed mine was on its way, but it never arrived. After waiting a few weeks, thinking it may have gotten lost in the mail, I decided to check in with Alex. When I called, he seemed agitated and told me he was overwhelmed, would be unreachable for a while, and that any wedding-related questions should go to Stella. He assured me he'd call once things settled. I reached out to Stella multiple times over the next week via calls, texts, and emails, but she never responded. At that point, it became clear that I wasn't invited to the wedding, and for some reason, my relationship with Alex had taken a serious hit. Yesterday, a little over 3 weeks after our last conversation, Alex sent me a DM asking if I was available to chat. I jumped at the chance to finally get some answers. After a bit of small talk, Alex got straight to the point. He said he knew I had been really busy with work and dealing with personal matters, but he'd love for me to attend his wedding, even just as a guest. He also asked if there was anything he could do to help make that happen. Without thinking, I immediately blurted out that I would have loved to, but I never received an invitation. Alex just stared at me and said, "What?" I ended up rambling, explaining that I never got an invite, which was why I had called him weeks ago, that I had reached out to Stella for clarification but was ignored, and that I had no idea what he was talking about when he mentioned me being too overwhelmed to be involved in the wedding. After a long, awkward silence, Alex said he needed to go figure some things out and that he'd call me once everything was sorted. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with messages from wedding guests asking what happened and why the wedding might be called off. My girlfriend reassured me that I did nothing wrong, but people from all sides are saying I overstepped and stirred up unnecessary drama, which has been seriously messing with my head. Also, after Alex DM'd me, we switched to a video call. Forgot to mention that. Alex and I texted back and forth on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. He assured me he was handling things and asked if I'd be available to talk with him and Stella on Thursday afternoon, which I agreed to. I'm honestly too mentally exhausted to write this out as a full narrative, so here's a rough summary in bullet points. Some background on Alex for context. He grew up in a fairly sheltered and religious environment until he left for college at 18. As a result, he still has some blind spots about certain things. He has mild to moderate OCD, which he manages with low-dose medication and maintenance therapy. Unexpected stressors can overwhelm him easily, and wedding planning has been full of them. The actual update. The wedding is still happening, and I will officially be the best man. I've been caught up on everything I need to do. The person originally filling in for me, Matthew, 34M, one of our close friends who is also neurodivergent, is relieved to step down. He's happy to skip the formal responsibilities and instead party his ass off. Due to this entire mess, Alex, Stella, or whoever is covering the wedding expenses has agreed to pay for my and my girlfriend's plane tickets, hotel stay, and my best man tux. What caused this whole mess in the first place? Stella's pregnancy. They found out just a few days after the wedding invitations were sent out. Apparently, they had been casually trying for a while, then actively trying in 2022. However, once the save the dates went out, they decided to go back on reliable birth control because Stella didn't want to be pregnant on her wedding day. This led to multiple changes in the wedding plans, disrupted other arrangements, and sent Alex into an OCD spiral for a couple of weeks. That's why he was agitated when I called him. He needed time to process everything and manage his intrusive thoughts. It's also part of the reason why Stella didn't see or respond to my messages and calls. Why didn't Stella respond to my messages? Aside from the surprise pregnancy, Stella said she spends a lot of time on her phone for work and receives hundreds, if not thousands, of emails, texts, and calls every day. She misses things sometimes, especially since she didn't have my number saved, lol. On top of that, I emailed her work address instead of a personal one, which I don't have, and my email handle doesn't include my name. In the future, I was told to be more persistent if I need to get through to her. Noted. What happened to my invite? Stella insists she sent me one, but it likely went to my old address. I moved to my current place in March, but the save the dates were sent out in January. What did Stella tell Alex about me not being in the wedding? Apparently, nothing. According to Stella, Alex may have either 1. Mistaken one of his intrusive thoughts for reality while he was struggling with OCD, 2. Gotten confused when she mentioned that one of her cousins who has a similar sounding name to mine wouldn't be attending, or 3. Some combination of both. Stella claimed she always wanted me in the wedding. Why didn't Stella contact me after I failed to RSVP? She assumed there was an issue between me and Alex, figured we'd work it out on our own, and that he'd fill her in. In the meantime, she was busy with work, wedding planning, and the unexpected pregnancy. How did so many wedding guests find out about this mess? After our conversation, Alex called his mom for advice. Unfortunately, she had some church friends over at the time, and they overheard most of the discussion. Since these church ladies love to gossip, word spread quickly. Alex has spent the last couple of days trying to do damage control. After about an hour, Stella left to handle wedding-related stuff, and Alex and I talked things through for a few hours. Do I fully believe Stella's explanations? Kind of. The pregnancy seems real, confirmed by a medical professional. She does have a cousin with a similar sounding name, and she really does spend a lot of time working from her phone. But the rest of it feels a little too convenient, and I still have more questions than answers. The upside. Since I'm officially in the wedding, I'll have plenty of access to figure out what's really going on. Wedding status, still happening. The surprise baby just threw everyone for a loop. It's been a while, sorry for the delayed update. Work has been insanely busy for the last 6 months, so I've been running around putting out fires non-stop. Here's the short version of the wedding and some post-wedding events. The lead-up was mostly uneventful, just tons of back-and-forth emails between me, Stella, wedding vendors, venues, and other people involved. Alex and I had some deep conversations throughout the week and reaffirmed how important our friendship is. The first night was incredibly awkward, especially since Alex's stepsister Sam, 32F, and Stella's younger sister/maid of honor, Deanna, 29F, were already staying there. We stayed at an Airbnb within walking distance of Alex's house. I quickly switched into event planning mode, which helped smooth things over and put Stella at ease. I spent most of the lead up to the wedding either at the ceremony/reception site doing liaison/setup, gaffing, running cables, setting up monitors, hanging and focusing, building shit, etc., or running around picking shit/people/shitty people up with Sam. My girlfriend, Alice, 29F, was a bit annoyed by how things played out. She's only ever attended weddings, never worked one, so she expected the trip to be about 50% work and 50% vacation. In reality, it ended up being more like 90% work and 10% vacation for me. She spent most of her time either helping Alex with wedding-related tasks or gaming on my laptop when she got too exhausted or overwhelmed. The wedding itself. It was a chaotic but fun event, with plenty of unrelated drama. I'll give Stella credit, she knows how to design a gorgeous ceremony and throw a hell of a party. Unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy much of it since I was working the wedding alongside a few other members of the wedding party rather than simply attending. But that's how it goes sometimes. The ceremony itself dragged on forever, and I felt terrible for the bridesmaids who had to endure it in heels. Did I get a full explanation for why everything went sideways? Not exactly. There was no dramatic revelation or big moment where the full truth came out. But based on what I observed while working the wedding, I think I've been able to piece together most of what happened. Why wasn't I the best man? I suspect it had more to do with Stella's parents, Ken and Karen, 60s, than Stella herself, though she still doesn't like me. Here's why I think that. Ken and Karen covered the majority of the wedding expenses, contributing more than Stella, Alex, and Alex's parents combined. Early on, Alex and Stella had a rough idea of what they wanted for the wedding. However, throughout the planning process, Stella made several major changes seemingly out of nowhere. For example, they initially planned for a smaller wedding of 50 to 60 guests, but one day, Stella suddenly wanted a huge wedding. Alex didn't mind and assumed she had just changed her mind, not realizing that most of these shifts happened right after she had a phone call or in-person meeting with her parents. Her parents were cold toward me, which I expected, and the feeling is mutual, and made several odd remarks about Stella's younger brother, Chase, 23M, who is totally not a cokehead. They frequently compared us in ways that favored him and kept insisting he was perfect best man material. Despite all this, Alex has barely interacted with Stella's parents maybe a dozen times over the past 5 years. Every time they visit for the holidays, Stella makes sure they leave early, and she rarely reaches out to them on her own. Stella behaves really strangely around her parents. She comes across as a strong, modern woman around everyone else, but when it's just her parents, she becomes very submissive. For instance, when her mom asked her to drive over an hour to pick up a specific food item in the middle of wedding planning, Stella did it without any complaints, leaving the rest of the wedding party hanging. When she returned 3 hours later, her mom barely touched the food before tossing it out. If I hadn't witnessed it myself, I wouldn't have believed how bizarre it was. There are a lot of little things that don't mean much on their own, but when added together, they create a pretty solid case of circumstantial evidence. This is my theory of what happened. Ken and Karen wanted Chase to be the best man at the wedding, while Alex was really set on me being the best man. Instead of making a decision, Stella tried to please both sides by telling them what they wanted to hear without actually committing. As time went on, the lies became more complicated. When Alex had his emotional breakdown, Stella saw an opportunity to untangle the mess by taking advantage of the situation. Unfortunately for her, Alex came to his senses before the wedding and started asking questions. In the end, Stella chose her relationship over whatever drama was going on with her family, much to their apparent disappointment. Why doesn't Stella like me? I have 2 main theories here. First, I have a habit of swearing a lot, probably more than most people realize is possible. I use fuck in nearly every grammatical form: noun, verb, adjective, adverb, pronoun, preposition, conjunction, interjection, numeral, article, and determiner. While working at the wedding, I made an effort to tone it down by about 90%, which made me more aware of how others react to swearing. Stella, in particular, always seems to cringe or grimace whenever someone curses, especially me. She rarely swears herself, and when she does, it's something mild like hell or damn it, always followed by a quick apology. I suspect it bothers her even more that, despite my unprofessional language, I actually hold a fairly professional job. That contradiction doesn't sit well with some people. Second, politics. Just to be clear, I lean somewhere between democratic socialism and socialism, nowhere near conservative, but still not left-leaning enough for Stella. From what I've seen, she's either a tanky or very close to it. Her social media, especially during major geopolitical events over the past 6 months, has made that pretty clear. It also doesn't help that my job is related to geopolitics, which, in her eyes, makes me part of the repressive imperialist Western system. Turns out, I'm not the only one at the wedding who isn't Stella's biggest fan. I've found a few like-minded people who share similar sentiments. Post-wedding updates. Alex and Stella recently welcomed a healthy baby girl, Iris, and Sam and I are her godparents. Alex and I have been talking more lately, mostly because he keeps asking me for childcare advice, though I'm just as clueless as he is. We've also started a weekly gaming session with Sam and Matthew, slowly making our way through BG3. As for Alex and Stella, they're in couples counseling, which seems to be helping. Stella was initially against the idea, but Alex pushed for it in hopes of being a better husband. Eventually, she agreed. From what I've heard, Stella's already back at work and has mostly returned to her pre-baby routine. Alex's stepsister, Sam, has been checking in on them regularly, and according to her, there haven't been any major red flags. Stella now texts or emails me occasionally, mostly sending baby pictures, which is a step in the right direction, and I'm grateful for it. I respond with pictures of my cat. Hopefully, this is the final update. My life got way too interesting that month, and with my current workload, I don't think I could handle more drama. Nothing major to report hopefully, things are looking better.